interesting when you're open center sometimes in your design. And I think this is so powerful to recognize. And it's been one of my biggest learnings as I've gone down my own rabbit holes in human design is I will say I was one of those people, especially when, and I think sometimes it's the way it's taught or it's the way it's brought to light, is the open centers or the open areas in your chart, you think you're lacking. And so you're in a space where you think, oh my God, something's wrong with me. This is the space where shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have consistent energy. Oh my God, this is going to be like my biggest headache. And what I've come to learn, and I will thank Becca for this so much, because I think she really put it in perspective. And I cannot say enough about working with her. And I know she's got a new program she's rolling out that I highly recommend for people if they want to really look at it from a money perspective and abundance. She's just brilliant. That being said, it was the space around how do you embrace your open centers as like the magic, the treasure. Like one of the things when I look at the fact that I only have 3 open centers, 2 very wide open, and then which is my head and my ajna, and then my ego center, which is pretty much wide open. I have 1 gate in there, right? And when I think about that, I'm finding myself as I'm leaning into it more and more fascinated by my open centers. Like I get your defined centers are your natural superpowers. They are the space where you consistently have energy, right? You are constantly broadcasting a consistent aura, a consistent energy, a consistent way, and you're constantly projecting that out. All of our defined centers are essentially the personality of who we are that other people feel from us. So it's stuff that's always coming off us. Even if we don't think it's not something that's required, has any required thinking, or we have to do anything with. It just is. It is how we are wired. It is, we show up in that way. Energy just moves. We broadcast it 24/7. It's just projected off. What's interesting is the open areas are all these amplification centers. And so we're taking in. So I love it because the defined areas are how we show up in the world and what others feel and receive from us. The open centers are what we're taking in from the world. And so not only is like that the biggest areas for contemplation, it's the biggest areas for discernment and the power of choice. And when you start understanding, and this goes back to, when I first looked at human design, it was the space of, oh my God, I got to correct my shadow. Oh my God, all these open areas are the areas I got to heal, because the first teacher or the first place I went down and started studying this, it was all about, you got to heal your shadows. You got to heal the open areas. You got to heal, you got to heal, you got to heal. Yes. And you don't, it's not like you're trying to arrive to a space or you're trying to get rid of something. It's more around embracing what the shadow is bringing to the table for you. And I say that because I even think about Shaman Durek's work in spirit hacking, when he talks about the shadow's gift is to bring you into the light. The shadow is here to open up access to more than you could ever believe is possible. And when I look at my chart or anybody else's, and I look at the open centers, that is the biggest area for growth. That is the biggest area to have the real power of free will to discern and decide how you're going to show up and what energy you want to bring in. It's also the biggest area where you get to teach and communicate and share the wisdom and experiences of what you've learned, because you've felt what it's been like to be in the shadow of that, right? And regardless of whether you're a teacher or an influencer like I am, or if you're somebody who's in your own community, these are the lessons we're here to teach. And so it's been fascinating for me, because the more I explore my open centers, especially that little one, the ego, which, like I said, can be my biggest ass kicker, it's also like my biggest gift. It is really juicy when you understand, because when I think about something like the open ego center, if you've got a defined center, which is like, 35% of the population has a defined center, you have a very consistent sense of will. You have a consistent sense of worth and value. You are someone who can really, you are actually here to express your desires and what you want from the material plane. There's no judgment of that. You actually need to look at what you desire from a material standpoint. It's all about wealth and money. It's about determination. It's about this sense of willpower, but they have a consistent way they get to tap into willing something to manifest. Those, the 65% of us that don't have that, that is not our jam. What our gift is, though, is being able to teach and discern what is of value and what is not. What is who's keeping their promises and who not, because the ego is also about promises, right? And commitments. And so for those that have the open center, we have to be really mindful of who and what we're making promises and commitments to, because we cannot keep those promises. If we made a promise, and I'll give you an example, being an emotional manifesting generator who has to ride the wave. If I say yes and commit to something when I'm in the high of the passion, and I haven't let it ride out to neutral, I guarantee 3 days later, I'm going to bow out and I'm going to break a commitment. I'm be like, I'm not going. It's like when someone asks me 6 months in advance if I want to do something, and come the day, I'm like, no. And my friends are like, why are you bailing out? I'm like, because I do not have the energy for this. And you do not want me there if I do not have the energy for this. That's the thing that really needs, you do not want me here if it's a very clear hell no. God, you do not want my energy in the space that's not lit up. I am not, because that irrational anger shows up, right? That space that says, oh, this feels like not, oh, it's not anything that my body wants to do. It's not anything that's feeding me. And so when you make promises and commitments from the place of pure, it's why there's a difference in me doing Becca's program versus somebody else's program. I gave myself the charge to wait 3 days before making a decision of jumping in another program. I am a self-development junkie, part of what shows up in my ego also. I am a self-development junkie. I jump into more programs and have spent more money on things that truthfully I have not finished. This was different when I went down this path recently, because I told myself you need 3 days. Every day you can check in. If it's something that you can't stop thinking about. And what was different is, even though my yes was still a yes, the way my yes showed up was very different. And when I honored the fact that I don't have to control something, because this is my defying gate. And so the shadow in my defying gate is I have to be in control of my life, my circumstances, my environment, people around me, things. I need to be driving the ship. What happens is when you move into that gift, you stand in that space of authority and you say, I know, and I trust, and I have the value, and all resources will be provided for me. Because here's the beauty of like that gate, for example. And I say that because it showed up again with a client yesterday. So apparently 21 is really trying to teach me something these days. It's around the fact that inside of the gate in the gift, get to actually, because it's the gate of the hunter or the huntress, which means the old shadow tribal energy of the 21 is all about, I got to go hunt to get resources so that our tribe can survive. And what happens is when you move into the gift and you stand into the authority, you actually are here to lead and from a position of assumed control, that then is allowing yourself to demonstrate and show others how to get the resources they need so that they can thrive, so that they can access. You don't actually have to be the one going out doing the hunting for the collective tribe. You are actually in the position of leadership and control to show others how to bring those resources forth. That's a big nuance, right? It's a little nuance, but it's huge. And when you think about that, I get really excited. In fact, I went to bed last night and then I woke up this morning and I'm like, because again, yesterday, a whole bunch of stuff on the ego center just dropped in. And I'm like, of course it did, because I am, turn on my fan here. Oh, I'm melting. Menopause is killing me. But the fact that I woke up this morning and it was this space of, oh my God, I'm so excited to lean in further to the open spaces, because that's where, really honestly, it's where the innate gifts come from. It's where the things are hidden, and the stuff that we're bumping against. And like you and I were talking about even before the call, some things have been showing up in the material plane and the money space again. And I'm like, okay, the first instinct is you get that trigger. But then the second is, okay, something's coming up. And it's like that onion that gets peeled back and you're like, oh, the shadow's trying to take me into a further space of light. And there's just something really powerful when you recognize that these open centers aren't your weaknesses. They're the untapped potential of what's possible. And when you pair that with your natural superpowers of what you're already emanating from your defined spaces, that's where it gets really interesting. And so for me, I'm really excited where I struggled with my ego center for a while. I'm like, why is mine undefined? I want mine, because we always want what we don't have, right? Like, I'm brunette, I want to be blonde. I'm like this, instead of going, ooh, there's real magic in this. There's real potent possibility and power If I allow myself to explore that, if I allow myself to go down this rabbit hole and just stay curious and sort of see what shows up. But that shadow, when you allow it, that shadow actually becomes your best friend. And this is what I love that Shaman Durek said. He said, your shadow is your best friend if you allow it to guide you to the light. When you show up and want to punch it in the face, that's where it gets really dense and the resistance, and we're trying to fix it or control it or move it or push it, or it's that very imbalanced masculine energy that just keeps whatever. It's that space of, no, when you recognize your shadow is here to show you the paths that are possible and to help you unlock the door that's going to help you step into the light, because the shadow, the darkness of the shadow has no breath when you shine a light upon it. And so, that was good. Say that again. The shadow in the darkness in the shadow has no power when you shine a light on it. I like that. That just came in. Gotta sit with that for a minute, because truthfully, when you bring the shadow to the light, while it's still there, there's still lessons. That's the gift. That's the beauty. That's the magic, is we get to then peel back another layer. We get to go into a deeper level of consciousness. We get to lead from a different perspective. And it's just fascinating to me, because the more and more I study the ego center, the lines of leadership that are connected, whether it's you're about community, whether it's you're about healthy competition, whether you're about handling crisis or needing control, whatever that looks like, there are some really distinct gifts of leadership that show up in our ego center. And what I love is the ego center is also called the heart center. And my belief is, it feels like the ego center while we're still bouncing around in the shadow, and we get to move into that more heart open center that says, when our heart is fully open, we are standing in a place. And again, there's a huge vulnerability in that, right? I think there's a lot of vulnerability in being able to allow ourselves to be open, heart-centered and open in our ego center. That vulnerability then becomes that superpower, becomes the strength, right? It's not, we stop, because when we're in the shadows of the ego center, there's a lot of this, vulnerability is weakness. There's a big belief around, in fact, my client and I were bouncing up against this yesterday, because again, he's got his ego center looks exactly like mine, just the 21 gate. And we were talking about how, the ego center, one of the biggest things it pushes against us when it's open is, I can't do what I love and be paid for it. Like, I can't be in a place that lights me up, that feels vulnerable, that feels open. And I think 65% of the population, think about how many people are stuck in that shooting around, I got to prove something, I got to be of value, I got to know my worth. When you can stand in the authority that's, I am worthy just because I know I am here as a piece of puzzle on this earth right now with a gift that is calling through me, that when I can show up and know that all the resources are available, whether you got the 21, and the 21 really is knowing, wait, I don't have to go out and kill the bear. All we have to do is stand in a space to call it in, and the resources are readily available. And I'm here to show others that, and I feel like that. And I think about even what I'm teaching others how to fish, right? I'm teaching others how to get the resources to thrive, versus where those codependent threads have shown up for me, which is, I got to go do it for you. I got to go fish. I got to get the fish and cook it and like feed you. And I'm teaching people how to feed themselves. And so when you think about that, that's taking that space of, oh, I don't need to fix it for everyone. I don't need to take care of everyone. Even my current situation right now with my mom living, all of that stuff is yes. And I'm going to show you how to find the resources, which starts right here, obviously, so that you can thrive and we can move out of survival. Because this very archaic, ancestral, tribal energy has been, we got to go hunt to survive. And so it is the gate of the hunter and the huntress. And when you can elevate that into a different kind of hunt, I just think there's such magic. And that's just the one gate, right? Like, then you look at the other spaces, and I think about from a leadership perspective, right? I mean, that is the biggest thing. That gate is all here to be in a position of leadership and control, but control not in, I got to control things, a control in, I have a very clear sense of knowing we are all taken care of. We are all enough. We are all here. And when I can demonstrate that and lead from that position, others can tap into that well of resources as well. And so I get really excited, again, the deeper I go on this stuff, because even as I'm, talking about the magnetic as fuck container and like what we're launching, even as I'm teaching it, more and more keeps dropping in, right? And so what's interesting is, and this, as I teach this, I will teach the real time of what's coming through, because it's guiding me to leverage that, right? To share that, because even the way I teach human design, even in the container, it's not a linear path. Yes, I've got the 6 weeks and we're going to break it down and it looks like, and I'm going to move in between where those leadership lines are showing up, so that, again, the things that I'm here to teach through that, such as how do you do your own fishing, I'm going to show you how to fish, and we're going to map that out in your chart. That's really exciting to me. I mean, I don't want to get into like, step 1 is let's look at your type. Step 2 is we're going to do that. And it's not going to feel that, because that's what some people do, right? It's like layer by layer by layer by layer, which just feels dense and it feels mechanical and it feels too academic and too linear. This is let's play in. And again, the magic is, and I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but this is just all channeling through. The magic of it is those that choose to be in the container is what will be the leadership lines that need to be taught. Like, I get prompted that if I got this person and this person, it's happening in my current container with the Dare to Awaken Your Dynamic Dream. The people that are in there is dictating the path we're taking. So that's also the beauty, right? Is while there's a quote curriculum, it is a co-creation space that says whoever is showing up, I then get prompted on where do we need to go in terms of you understanding your own ability to lead, find your resources, and then share that back, right? Because one of my gifts standing into it is I am not here to hold someone's hand for a long time. I'm here to activate where and how you find your own way to fish, so that then I can set you free and you can go teach others to do the same. Like, it really is a lead it forward model, which is really, really, really important, especially, and I know you get this, Brandy, that 6-2 profile. The 6 in us is very clear. We do not want long-term. Like, now it's not to say we don't want long-term relationships and we don't want to be, as long as it's growing and expanding and we're moving together, that's different. I do have clients that stay with me for a long time. You and I have been working together for a while now. That feels good as long as it feels good, until it may not feel good. And then we make it and say, okay, now it's time to expand and move on. And that's the beauty of that, right? There's a knowing to say it's time to let go and let you fly, right? It's time you have your own wings. I'm going to push you out of the nest. And I love that I finally can embrace that, because again, it takes away some of that aspect of control, but it also plays into a lot of the codependency threads that have shown up for me, that I've had the opportunity to say, what does that really look like and mean for me? Oh, that maybe it's time for that client to fly, and they don't need to be in my nest anymore. They can always come back. And I've had a client that recently, after about a year, came back and was like, okay, it's time, let's do next level. Great. And having that, it feels so juicy knowing that we needed that period where we didn't. And so I don't know, I just get really excited about that. And I think about the individual profiles and lines and what that means. And like I said, for some reason, the ego center, for some reason, of course, it's with purpose, it keeps showing up to show me how powerful the leadership lines are inside that. And of course it does, because it's one of my open centers. It's one of my open centers that says, here's your biggest opportunity to teach, to share guidance, to put this out there. And so anyway, I just find it fascinating, because it parallels with my codependence, especially where it shows up in my chart. It's my conscious Mars, where my unconscious Mars is the codependent. So this idea of control and codependence, and my core wounding and my vocation and what I'm called to do is connected in those two spaces. And I'm like, makes total sense when I think about the fact that I have spent almost 50 years learning how to recover from being the world's biggest control freak, and still a work in progress.
Absolutely, we all are. But no, I really do love the way you're reframing the shadow piece, because, and you and I have talked about this a lot, but in the self-help community, a lot of times we're being taught that you need to change, you need to think differently, you need to spin it this way. And it all boils down to making us feel like we're wrong or we're doing something bad. So I do love the shift that you're having with the shadows in the terms of this can all be our gifts. This can be working for us. We got to just learn about it, dive inside and get this piece figured out. And then you can become so much more expansive and step into truly who you are and giving yourself permission to do that. And it just feels like so much of human design is a tool and a gift to give yourself permission to really step into who you are.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we have a lot of tools around us that allow us to do that. I mean, you and I have been on this self-development journey for, I mean, like you just said, 50, almost 50 years. I've been doing it a long time myself. And a lot of it just leaves you kind of feeling empty. Not all of it, but some of it.
Well, and you make a really good point, Brandy, because think about the judgment sometimes. This is what I have really struggled with. And I think this is such a powerful point that I'm getting very deliberate to slow this down. Because I think we do not, first of all, there's the permission piece. There is the space that says, I get to decide for me. We hand our power over in so many capacities. And honestly, one of the biggest ahas for me, especially in my core wounding, for my vocation, for my calling, for other things, is around this codependent shadow. And mine is 19.5. And that 5 is all around the system level, which was really sort of eye-opening to me when I was like, wow, this isn't just codependence between me and another person, or me and a client, or me and my family. This is codependence in terms of what we've bought into, in terms of our governance, the systems, the way we've been taught to hand our power over, that, by the way, and this is an unconscious space. So I say this because for anyone that's like, oh shit, I want you to realize that this programming, this conditioning, especially from your open centers or from your unconscious lines, your defined spaces in the unconscious space, there's no shame in this game whatsoever. This is conditioning that oftentimes is many, 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 many generations back. And if you look at the universal energy of the cross of planning right now, we've been in this energy since 1615. I mean, let's be clear. There has been a very tribal, heavy governance. Everybody needs to look the same. This is what feels safe. Very survival, imbalanced survival of the fittest. Like there's been this judgment. And in that judgment, not only judgment of ourselves, there's been a judgment that says, I need others' approval, validation before I can step out and do anything, because it looks different than what society says is okay. And so we have created this space that even in our self-development, there has been an underlying tone. And this is something that I've struggled with, even being in this industry for the last 10 years outside of corporate, but I've been doing coaching for a long time, and I've been doing my personal development. I mean, I probably started way back when I was about 8 years old, right? Like my first books and things I was reading and things I was interested in. What I'm starting to realize is there's an underlying current of shame and judgment in almost everything that is out there, because one, we are human beings and we're wired that way. So there's a level of that. And there's this sense of even the belief of your mess is your message, your struggle is your struggle. Why we insist on everything in our life has to be a struggle, it's because we've been conditioned and programmed that way. And one of the things for me that was so freeing, and I say that because that space of being liberated from our own bullshit and then the noise that's all around us is like, I can't even explain it until you've experienced it. It really is beyond a life changer. It is like a completely different, like, it's like a quantum sphere, different cosmos universe you're playing in. But to give yourself real permission to say, and again, it's that space of sovereignty, right? It's understanding the real meaning of sovereignty, which is I am of myself and of no one else. I am of all, but I belong to me and I belong to no one. And it's that space where, I forget who said it, was like, maybe it was Maya Angelou, I don't know, I'm probably quoting, who said, I belong to no one and I belong to everyone. And like, there's this interconnection of we are all the same and we all have that piece that is ours when we give ourselves permission to realize that that is not in any way, shape, or form something that can be put into a contrived box that says, this is how you live your life. And this is what a client and I were talking about yesterday, this idea of, but you see all the people out there and they're hustling and they're grinding. And I said, yeah, and they're probably miserable. I said, the problem is we've got this grind game down as the direction we're supposed to go, when it's literally killing us. It is literally putting us in a position where not only is our personal power not even something we even recognize, but we have forgotten that we are sovereign beings and we have domain over our bodies, our minds, our experiences, our choices. That is the whole space of free will, is I have domain over myself. And then we're missing and not able to like fine tune and focus on our superpowers and our innate gifts, because we're so caught up in this idea that we think belonging means I need to be accepted. And it's all the work Brene Brown does, right? Around the difference between acceptance and belonging. There's a huge, they are not the same thing. And we have created a culture that says I need to be accepted instead of learning how to belong. And belonging says I belong to me first. Belonging says I know I am here on this planet at this time with a purpose, because otherwise, what would be the point? What would be the point? And so I love that you just said that, because there is an underlying space around personal development that has a very heavy unconscious shaming or judgment tone that says, well, I'm an influencer, I'm a guru. I mean, it's the whole kind of spiritual shaming. And it's not, there's a bigger piece of that too, because a lot of it's unconscious. We don't even realize, we're like, well, this is the way you got to do it. Or no. This is one possibility. And so I really want people to consider, how do you move out of the space of, this is the way you are successful? First of all, let's fucking redefine successful, because that word in and of itself is jacking people up. And how about we move away from either or? You either do this and you're successful, or you're not. And we start to embrace the space of, that's one possibility in an infinite sea, an array of possibilities. And you can choose to go down that path, and or you can find a different path that lights you up instead. And that was for me probably the biggest space I felt most liberated and felt was freeing as I started to go down human design more, was that I could start to recognize more and more of those paths of possibility that weren't available to me in some of these contrived self-improvement, personal growth spaces. So I love that you just put that out there.
And I think that's what we are all looking for right now, is paths of possibility. I think we're all sick of being pigeonholed and boxed in, and all the programming and conditioning that you mentioned that makes it, look like it's got to look like this, or it's got to be like this, or you're wrong, or you're bad. And so, yeah, paths of possibilities. That's what we're all looking for. So I love that.
I love that. I love that too. And the thing is, imagine if for a minute, again, what if you gave yourself, imagine if you gave yourself permission. First of all, imagine if you gave yourself permission, hard stop. Okay, that's a start on that question. So imagine if you gave yourself full permission, hard stop. Imagine if you allowed yourself to explore and play in the paths of possibility, hard stop. Imagine if you stop thinking there was this frame of black and white, right and wrong, this or that, and you allowed yourself to believe in the and collective and all. Mm-hmm. It's not an or equation. It's an and all. It's a endless, infinite array of possibilities that says there is no this or that, right or wrong. There is a, and something better and more. And yes, again, the universe is designed to say yes to us. We've forgotten that. The universe is here to support us in every way. What if, and it was so interesting. I don't know if you get the universe talks from Mike Dooley. I get tut.com.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love
it. Did you see the message this morning? I'm going to actually read it to you, because I don't know if you read it, but it's so powerful. And I love this. He's like, okay, owner's manual for a life within time and space. Package contents. Number 1, thinker. That is you, Candy Barone. Magical universe. Number 2, magical universe with unyielding principles. Okay, So that's the package contents. There's you, the thinker, and there's the magical universe with unyielding principles. The instructions, number 1, think about desired manifestation in its final form. So the end result, what is the outcome, right? Not the output. What is the outcome? Physically follow hunches, instincts, and intuition, enabling movement in the direction of final form. That's number 2. Expected results. Manifestation will slip into thinker's life, that is you, when least expected via so-called coincidences and accidents, unless contradictory thoughts are entertained. The manufacturer's note, here's the disclaimer: believing in the necessities of blood, sweat, and tears, or sacrifice, worthiness, and years may severely impede the manifestation process, as will worrying about the hows and the means of attaining desired final form. Additionally, as long as the thinker, again, that's you, consistently and perpetually physically moves as outlined, contradictory thoughts will be mitigated and weakened. In other words, as long as you keep doing your part, you needn't worry that you sometimes worry. Guaranteed results, the universe. And then I love PS Candy, save the instructions. Yeah, so it's the yes and. Yes and. And if this is what I want, again, can we start to learn to trust the universe as much as we trust Amazon? Like, put your order out there and then do your part, which is, okay, I just need to be a movement of what's inspiring through me. It's the inspired action that says, move, go left, go right, stay still, go on a trail, go do whatever, let it go play with something. Instead of I got to, and again, especially those that have that, I'm going to full circle this, come back to that 21 great in your ego. They're like, I got to control this. And that's only one area, by the way. That is not, if you do not have a defined gate of 21 and you think you have control issues, don't worry. There are other areas where that shows up as well. So do not think that, oh, I'm free. I see, I don't have control. No, I could map that out in other spaces as well. I'm just saying, I'm using that one as an example, that if you are constantly anywhere you're feeling an incredible amount of resistance, more than likely you're in the shadow of something that you are still trying to like punch out of that bag instead of embracing. And I think this is the biggest opportunity, and one of the biggest messages from this is embrace the shadow as something to help guide you and navigate you along your path. The more you love your shadow, embrace your shadow, see your shadow, the more it opens up those pathways.